Welcome to the Homeward Bound podcast by the Mortgage Guys, your ultimate guide to navigating home buying and mortgage lending. Whether you're searching for your first home or settling into your forever home, we're here to make the journey simple, clear, and exciting, helping you secure your dreams one home at a time.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Homeward Bound podcast. We're glad to be here with you today, and I'd like to introduce those of us here on the podcast. We have Kyle Torgerson, loan officer here in the office. We have Miles Anderton, also another loan officer here, and my name is Dave Loescher. We have a little bit of a different topic today, one that we've been looking forward to doing. We're excited. It's involved in this process, and we have a guest that's going to remote in. That's why we have the headphones on today. We're doing something a little different. We're going to remote in a gentleman by the name of Dave Hoops, and Dave Hoops is with Old Republic Title. I want to turn some time over to him to just introduce himself real quick.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite. I'm David Hoops. I'm with Old Republic Title. I've been an escrow officer here for 7 years, and it's a learning curve every day. We get all new things that come at you, so hopefully I can answer the questions that you have.
Awesome. We're excited to have you here. And I know for us, we take it for granted. It's one of those things that we deal with title all the time. Title and escrow is just second nature to us. But those are the people that might be listening. I mean, honestly, Kyle, don't you think that it's Greek to them in some ways?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, what am I going to say about this? But there's so many times where I'm working through a loan estimate with somebody, and then everybody says, "Hey, wait, time out, just a second. What are all these fees here for title insurance? What is title insurance?" And, I do my best to explain that. And they're still confused when I'm done talking about it. I mean, there's no easy way to talk about it, but it's not home insurance. Some people think, oh, so if I die, this insurance will pay off my house. I'm like, no,
that would be great.
Not that either. Amazing. But no, I mean, Miles, what have you run into with your clients?
Yeah, pretty much the same. People don't fully understand what title does, their role. A lot of people just think it's a glorified notary in some ways too, right? But there's a lot more to it. And so, Dave will answer a lot of those questions today, but yeah, it's a lot of that. Well, why are all these fees here? And what do they do? So,
well, I can tell you this, that when we do a mortgage, we do the deal, and as it goes through the process, we get people approved, and it's time to close. It's time to record that thing, for them to sign those loan documents. And then money obviously has to get paid from the lender, us, to the seller. And that's not something we want to take care of. And that's not something we have the qualifications to do so. And that's, Dave, I believe that's where you come in, right?
Correct. That is where we come in. Here in Utah, we get to do the title insurance, and we have a title company that search the property. And then we also have escrow officers like myself that are the fiduciaries. We're that neutral third party where we get to make sure that all signatures are present and that everybody's agreed upon. And we hold the funds till everything has been satisfied and recorded, and then we disperse. So we're following those contracts and making sure everything's done correctly.
It's awesome. And as Kyle just mentioned, title insurance is part of what you do, as you just said. And it's not something that pays off. If someone were to pass away, it doesn't pay off the mortgage, right? Tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, about what is title insurance? I mean, in layman's terms, I guess something that most of us would understand.
Yeah, so title insurance is insurance that you own the property, and that if any interests from previous owners or heirs of previous owners come up, that's what we are insuring. We're insuring the ownership of the property. And we also do lender's policies. So we insure the lenders that they can be in what we call first position, so that their interest for lending the funds to the buyer is right there behind the buyers. So if anything is to happen or be sold, they get their money first.
Makes sense.
It seems like, this is absolutely necessary. But when you buy a property, your name goes on title. Dave, talk to us a little bit about where title insurance kind of came from, because it seems like, if Miles owns a property, it's Miles' property.
Yeah, it seems like it should be.
Yeah, and so it should be indisputable. But things happen. Things go the wrong way sometimes. And I mean, I'm incredibly grateful for title insurance companies. They do a lot of things that I don't want to touch or deal with. And so thank you, Dave. But, talk to us a little bit about, why is it that you have to pay a premium to make sure that your name is on title?
So with title insurance, there is a premium. It is a one-time premium. So it's not an every month or an every year premium. You just pay it at the time of closing, and then you're insured for the life that you own the property. It does go back all the way back to the 1800s, where land was given basically at handshakes and given away. So they had to come up with title insurance and title companies to go through and record things and make sure that people are on record of owning that property so that other people don't come in and just take it over.
I mean, that makes sense if you're doing everything on the handshake.
Yeah. It's changed from the days. I'm thinking of a movie, thinking way back. I don't know if you guys watched that movie. It had Tom Cruise, I believe.
Far and Away.
Yeah, Far and Away.
Yeah, I was thinking about that same.
Yeah, I remember I'm just trying to think, where does David Hoops come in on this thing where these people are racing horses across the prairies and trying to stick their white flags in and running over each other and fighting over property. But I imagine back in those days, that's probably recorded days. Maybe it has some of the data. I mean, you said it goes back into the 1800s, and you guys come across a little bit of data from back then with ownership. Is that correct when you search stuff?
Correct. Yeah, it depends on the county, but if you're on the eastern part of the country, there's a lot more over there than what you're describing in that movie from Far and Away. That's them coming over here on the west and staking their claim. But essentially, there's property lines, and that's what our searching department does. Is they go through, search those property lines, make sure that any easements, rights, or claims from other people that cross those lines, cross those properties, are there. And so everything's upfront and clear on that title report. And that's what we're insuring as well.
So Dave, do you have any stories of someone trying to come and claim title from a property previously, like that someone else has bought with you guys and where the title insurance has stepped in to take care of that? Or do you have any stories like that?
There's stories out there, none that I've been involved with as far as claims going over, but there has been error. We are human. People have recorded things that crossed lines where the title company had to go back in and essentially pay for the 15 feet that was crossed over and insured upon.
Makes sense.
So in that case, the lot line was recorded different than what the actual was?
Correct.
So, I mean, surveys and that type of information are going to be pretty important. Do surveys come up quite a bit when you're looking at recording and searching a property?
They do. We have a special exception that we can put on if we require a survey. But it's typically what we call meets and bounds. If it hasn't been platted or put in a subdivision, there's meets and bounds, and it just has calls, is what we call them. So there's rods, chains, and links, the old time way of measuring.
That's crazy.
But go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's a crazy way of doing it, but that's awesome.
So Dave, is there, one of the things that we're going to talk a little bit about today, and we've talked about, especially of recent, where people, when they try to take advantage of others and there's fraud. I mean, just about every industry out there really has fraud, right? I mean, there's mortgage fraud in our world. We have to be careful of that. And there's fraud in just about every business out there. In your industry, in your corner of the market, what do you guys experience fraud to some level as well?
Oh yeah, we have fraud that has been coming up more and more lately. Seems to be with vacant land. People are impersonating owners, creating emails addresses that have the owner's name in it, and then trying to actually sell the property. One thing we will always look out for is if they want to use their own notary or if they won't meet in person. Everything's done, usually over an email, things like that. So being a escrow officer and a notary, we want to make sure that we use valid ID and go through those processes that will secure and make sure that everybody's there doing the right thing.
Wow.
So I mean, vacant lots, and people impersonating each other with that type of thing. I mean, that's kind of a scary ordeal. I mean, I'm thinking about my home. I have the neighboring lot that I have as well, and like, what if somebody was trying to sell my lot? That's kind of frightening.
I mean, could Kyle lose that lot? Is it a permanent thing if somebody does fraudulently come in and does a fraudulent sale of Kyle's lot? Could he ultimately lose that, or is that something that's protected? I guess. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so part of your title insurance, it does insure over fraud. So if Kyle had that neighboring lot and he went through a title company, it would be insured with fraud insurance on it. So if somebody was to fraudulently try and sell it, then that is insured upon.
So what if I didn't have a title policy, my owner's policy on there, but someone stepped in and, you know, all of a sudden someone's shown up to that lot and saying, "Hey, this looks like a pretty good lot. Glad I bought it." And I was like, who are you? You know, what is the risk there to me or to anybody that owns a lot? Could that in fact happen?
Yeah, it definitely could happen. You would have to go back and fight that with lawyers and prove that it was fraudulently signed over, that somebody impersonated you.
So at minimum, I'm going to have some legal costs.
Correct.
So obviously the takeaway here is it pays to use the professional that actually does, like you said, you guys are notaries as well. So you guys are doing everything on the up and up above board, where you're getting signatures proving that they're who they say they are. You're notarizing it. You're putting that policy in place. I mean, to somebody that's buying and or selling any kind of a property, they're almost foolish not to take advantage of what the service that you do, people like you, Dave, in this industry, because I mean, just I've heard stories and horror stories about people that actually pull it off and do get it, you know, and then there's the wire fraud that goes along with it, where they actually get it sold and they get a wire transfer to them. And then that's kind of a definitive thing that once that happens, that money's theirs, and that fraudulent criminal got away. So anyway, just a lot of stress involved if you're not setting it up right.
I was going to just say with that, I mean, another protection that the escrow company offers is, we kind of hit it on it before, but the fact that they hold the funds, right? So that they're a third party that's completely separate from the transaction. They're holding the funds there. And because there is a lot of wire fraud right now, that's super important, because you don't know where your money's going. But if you know you're sending it to a title company, you know it's a little bit more protected, and it's not just going directly to some random person that says, "Here's my account information." And so in my opinion, that's just a huge benefit there, and avoids a little bit more of that wire fraud, which obviously is still a scary thing when you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for a house.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So that's on the title and the insurance piece of it. But a big thing, excuse me, that we do here in the mortgage world is when we get these borrowers in here and we open up title, right? We open it up with you guys, and then at the end of the game, you know, we send them to you to sign the loan documents that we generate. And that's always created a little bit of confusion. I don't know about you guys, but I'll sit there and say, okay, now you're going to go to the title company to sign. And it seems like over half of them just assume they're coming here, especially first-time home buyers. They assume they're coming in our office to sign their loan documents at the end and close and get their keys. You get the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, they say the same thing usually, like, well, I got a car loan. I went to the bank and signed the car loan. So this is a house loan. Let's sign the mortgage here. And it's like, well, you know, we're not going to. We're going to go to a title company because they're that, like Dave said, they're that third party. Is a fiduciary responsibility to make sure everybody's accounted for, all funds are available in there, and everybody is in agreement because that's required.
Yeah.
Because this is a fair transaction. It's highly regulated, and Dave and title companies are, you know, that's their mantle of responsibility, is to make sure everything is done correctly there. So
yeah. So Dave Hoops there. I got a question for you. As far as this goes, when we send loan documents, you know, a lender sends loan documents to you, you've balanced with our closer, all the numbers look great. It's time to collect signatures, right? And then that obviously can be a pretty good experience, a happy experience for some, because they're getting their first house or getting that new house or whatever it is. Can you kind of give some advice to us, as far as what parties are generally there at a closing? I mean, who's there? Who can attend? Who should attend? What would you say is advice to those borrowers, those buyers and or sellers in that whole transaction that comes to signing?
Yeah, well, it definitely varies. We like to see the lender there because they are going over all the final numbers with them and making sure that everything is correct in case they have any questions, and the agent that's involved with the sell or the purchase, so that they can make sure that the contract was followed correctly and that all the addendums or any changes were given to the escrow officer so that they can make sure that they're following that contract correctly. Sometimes those happen. You can get addendums that are last minute and the escrow officer doesn't get them in time, or the lender. But for the buyer or seller, I would say make sure that you're bringing valid ID with you. Usually one is sufficient, but sometimes 2 forms is required. And make sure that you're coming with plenty of time, because sometimes funds need to be transferred and there are wire cutoff times for different companies that vary. And also there's a lot of other moving parts. Once you sign, they think that they're done, but they're still recording. There's wire transfers, a lot of different things that go behind the scenes that they don't see. Sometimes there are multiple title companies involved and transfers have to be done between different parties there as well. So make sure that you give enough time to properly record everything and get all the parties agreed upon.
This morning, Miles and I were talking about kind of what you just mentioned. We talked about, it's the culmination of all things. When we sit there and we've worked and we've been in the trenches for, 15, 30 days, whatever it's taken to get this loan through, to get everything done. And it's time to go close. And Miles and I were talking about it, and we see it a lot. All 3 of us do, where it's like, okay, it's time to go to closing. And they're like, well, maybe I'll get there after work at 6.
Yeah.
And you guys have hours. You guys are, 8 to 5 type of company. But, Miles and I are talking about, it's interesting, isn't it? How so many of them won't take this as a very serious matter.
Yeah. Sometimes they forget that they're making the biggest purchase of their life, I think.
Yeah.
And so they just put it on the back burner, like Dave was saying, it's, sometimes they'll take work off for a doctor's appointment, which is great, but they won't take any time to go to a signing, or they just think that we can completely like reorganize everything just for that transaction. When in reality, they're, like you were saying, Hoops, they're, we have those dates, those times that we have cutoff times, and we have all of those things that we have to meet in order to make it work.
Yeah. And the contract says, you have to close on this certain date. And it's like, okay, that date comes and it's time to sign. And they're like, can't we do it after hours, or can't we do it this Saturday?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. So I had a closing last week. And this guy was, in the southern part of our state. He was only an hour away. Yeah. But he's just like, I'm busy. I'm sorry. I can't come and close. It's just not happening today. We're like, well, we have to today. There's no way around it. We got to go to get it done. And so, we put together a mobile notary, which is pretty cool. And Dave, I wanted to have you talk about this for a second too, if you could. But mobile notary was awesome because he met this guy at his business. He runs a law firm, and he was not going to break away, even though this was a major purchase. We needed to go to him to make it happen. And, that's a pretty cool benefit that is available. But one more thing, I guess, before we pass the buck to you, Dave, is when I bought my first house, we closed at 4:00 in the afternoon, and I thought, sweet. I mean, I had the moving van. It was ready. We'd moved out. Beds were in there. And so I was so disappointed when they're like, okay, we'll give you keys tomorrow. I'm like, what do you mean keys tomorrow? What is this? We're not getting keys tomorrow. We're because they couldn't fund because we were way past cutoff. It wasn't recording that day. But we had to figure out, we pulled out beds back out. We had to unpack half the truck to get our beds. And so that's important, that we could probably do a better job in letting our clients know if you're closing after this time, plan on moving in the next day. Don't pack up your whole house and go to title. But so Dave, does that happen quite often to you? People are surprised that they can't get in their homes till next day. And then talk to us a little bit about, mobile signing, if you could.
Yeah, that does happen quite often. That is the perception. Is most people think once they're at our office and they sign, it's done and they're ready to go. I don't think they realize that there are other things that have to take place after the fact. But as far as mobile notaries and mobile signings, mobile notaries are great. There's different companies out there that you can use. A lot of times mobile notaries are retired escrow officers that can still go out and they can do those notaries and actually know what the documents mean and be able to talk people through that stuff that they need to know about. We also have started with RONs, is what they're called, remote online notaries, where you can actually do an online notary. There's some specific requirements that have to be done with that, but those are coming more popular. You definitely want to check with your county and state to make sure that they accept those before you just jump in head first with it.
Makes sense. And related to what Kyle was talking about with that wire cutoff, I think that might be something that we're just, again, doing jargon here. We think, we understand the joke, we understand why.
Yeah.
But Dave, if you can just if you can just spend a little, just maybe a minute on it and talk about how wire cutoff works and what happened with Kyle in that story that he said is, he missed that cutoff. If you can kind of explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So wire cutoffs, they go off of when the banks and when the market closes on the East Coast. So usually it's right around 3:00 here at our Mountain Standard Time. But if you were signing at 4:00 and then you were done, the escrow officer then had to scan and get all the documents into the lender to review and approve, and then send their funds to the title company. And that title company has to make sure that everything's balanced with the other title company that they're working with, or with both transactions, the buyer and seller. And then they have to record. And the county is only open until 5. And some counties are closed earlier than 5. So there's just certain things that take place. So when you're doing things late in the day, you definitely want to talk with the lenders like you guys and make sure that they're approved to do what we call a table funding, where all the funds were sent before, and ready to go once the signatures are there.
Okay.
So
And if someone's
that is an
trying to,
option. That's another verbiage that comes out, and it's called table funding.
and if someone's trying to do a same day closing, like sign and close it all on the same day, what would be your recommendation to us as lenders, to anybody watching that's a buyer, or even agents out there to set something up? What would be your recommendation if they're trying to pull it off all in the same day and get it recorded? What would be a good timeline that you'd say for them to come in and sign?
I would say before lunch, make sure that it's done by 11:30. That gives plenty of time for people to review stuff, make sure it's done, and have those wires go out. It is still cutting it close at that time, but it depends on the situation.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And then the big question every time I go to closing, you guys probably get the same thing. When do I get my keys?
Yeah. They got their hand out.
Yeah.
Give me my dang key.
Give me my keys. I'm sure, Hoops, you see that a lot. What's your guys' common answer to that? I mean, that's not our department, obviously. We're lenders.
I typically tell them, you're probably going to want to call your agent.
Yep.
And because,
Call your
agents
realtor.
are usually there, but sometimes they're not. And because if they are there, I'd be like, pointing at the agent and be like, talk to these guys. I don't have your keys. But sometimes the sellers leave them on the kitchen counter and give them the garage code. But yeah.
It's always a little different. I think and you said this earlier, Hoops, you said at a closing, in a perfect world, I think it sounds like, the buyers are there, they're signing before noon. The lender is there to answer any question. And it's probably a good idea that the buyer's agent, real estate agent, is right there as well to kind of coordinate that piece of it and answer anything else that the transaction, or maybe some addendums that were in that real estate purchase contract, they can answer questions on. I liked how you said that earlier. Anything else that we're missing?
Yeah. You guys ever done the RONs, the remote online notaries?
I haven't.
So I've been able to do 2 in my career. Helped a guy. They're all dual citizen, nationalists. But the first one I did, the guy lived in Singapore, and he bought a property here. And so he was in Singapore when he signed his documents, when he did his notary, and that was that was my first one, so it was a little bit of a headache to figure it out. Then the second one I did, they lived in Portugal. Again, same story, buying property here, and that was cool. They had a lot of things to do, and Dave, if you wanted to, you could talk about it. It's not really important, I guess, but they had to verify their identity several ways. They had to have, a camera on them as they signed. And so there was a lot of things to do, but what a cool benefit. We can have people that are completely in a different side of the world sign documents, and it's pretty amazing. And it sounds like it's going to be a little more common. The verifications are going to be a little easier, or the technology is going to allow it to be a little easier, but pretty awesome.
But it sounds to me like in that, I mean, you really need to pay attention to your time zone changes, right? I mean, for us here in the United States, we go from Pacific to Eastern, and we have like a 4-hour spread, maybe. Yeah. I can imagine Singapore. I mean,
that was tricky. I didn't even remember that until you brought that up. I'm like, that was, because they were in even a different day than we were when we sent the documents, and so I mean,
they might be sitting in a moving truck for 2 days with those beds in that situation. Who knows?
Get a hotel.
But so Dave, Hoops, do you see a little bit of that? Do you see some of those out of country buyers? Is it very, very rare for you guys in the title world?
No, it's not rare. We get them quite frequently. One thing that I would say comes up is most people think that they have this smartphone that can do everything. And with a RON, there is multiple verifications that need to be done. So you can't just use your smartphone and use the camera on that to have it done. So you're wanting somebody with a laptop or a PC or something that they can have a webcam on plus the smartphone. So there's that dual verification there.
Gotcha.
But we've had them where they've been on vacation, just weren't able to come to a notary or have a notary go to them due to COVID is kind of when they started getting popular. So yeah, we've been seeing them quite a bit more and more. I think they are advancing, and we're going to see more and more of them.
That's cool. One last thing we kind of touched on earlier is that fraud thing, that fraud component. And I know there's some third-party things. We've talked about this in the office even this morning. There's some third-party services out there that try to get you to pay a membership thing and a subscription to be able to protect you or monitor your property once you have it in your name. Dave, I think you shared with us at one point that there's something that they can do themselves and kind of save in that subscription type thing.
Yeah, so with your title insurance, like I was saying earlier, you are insured against fraud. But also, if you were to just go to your county's website, the recorder's site, there's a thing that most counties are doing. It's called Property Watch. And you can just select that, put in your email address and your name, and then you'll be sent an email whenever anything was recorded in your name. One thing you want to be precise on is how the vesting is currently on that property that you own. Because if I was to put in Dave Hoops, but the vesting is David, it wouldn't show me if someone was doing it under David.
That makes sense. That's good to know. It's good to know there's something out there to protect us that doesn't cost money, like $20 a month or $19.95 or whatever it could be. So that's good advice. Anything else, guys, on the title world, that closing, escrow, wiring, anything we've missed?
I think we've kind of hit on it, but just something that I love about title and appreciate about title is just all the behind the scenes stuff that they do. And people don't see that very often. They really do balance everything together, right? When it comes from the realtor, it comes from us, it comes from another title company. And so you guys do a ton behind the scenes when it comes to making sure that the numbers are correct. So that final number that you slide across the table that for people to sign, you've already done 100 steps to get to that number and make sure that it's perfect for people. And so I just think that that's one of the benefits of having a title agent as well, because there's times that you can try to do a transaction without it, but it really, it's a lot more difficult because there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happens.
Yeah. I think, one last thing for me, I guess, is, when we go to signing, this is the end of the transaction. And it feels really good as a loan officer to be able to go and have a positive closing and make sure everything is accurate, and that everything's being explained well, and the documents are all in order. And Hoops does all this for us so well, and most often or not, then he's already dated the documents too, which which the clients love. But anything that can make us shine, selfishly as a loan officer, it means a lot. And I've worked with Dave for a number of years, and I will continue to work with Dave because he does a great job. But finding a good title person that knows how to do their job well is completely invaluable to a good loan officer. And
Absolutely.
I appreciate Dave.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. We've had some that kind of skim over things, and I've sat in closings with various. We all have. We've sat in it with different escrow officers, and some of them just blaze over it really fast, and it's kind of a blur, and people really walk away not knowing what they signed. And I know they're drinking from a fire hose, right, Dave? I mean, you get the first time home buyer comes in, and you have all this deed of trust that's how many pages. I mean, it's overwhelming to them. But I think there's something to be said for that perfect pace and that perfect coverage. And certain people just do a really good. Dave does a great job with that. Hoops does, where they cover it at just the right pace. They explain it. They're not too fast. They're not too slow. I mean, been in the ones where they could read over every item and you're there for 3 hours, and that's ridiculous. But there's always a sweet spot. And we certainly, Kyle and Miles both would agree. We appreciate that. We really, really do. But again, I want to just say thanks, Dave, Hoops, for being on this with us. I mean, I think it was great of you to take some time out of your schedule and jump on our Homeward Bound podcast to be able to talk a little bit about this thing that is so confusing to so many. What it is you do, what it is behind the scenes. It's more than just taking signatures. So we appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been an interesting, fun. Haven't done this before, but the main thing about title insurance and escrow officers is we are that neutral third-party professional. So we are the ones that we don't really have the skin in the game. We're just there to make sure everything's done legally, professionally, and for the best part of everybody involved.
That's awesome.
I was gonna ask, is it if Dave has any bad experiences with loan officers being kind of a pain in the butt? But I don't want that answer right now.
Yeah, that could be loaded. That could be aimed right back at us. I don't think you asked that one.
I don't need to know that one right now. But anyway, we could leave it right there, and it'd be just fine. But no, we appreciate you, Hoops.
We do. All right. Well, thanks again. Thanks for everybody for tuning in and watching this. If we're going to be going over more and more topics as the coming episodes keep going. So we're excited for some of the future ones. But anyway, thanks again for watching.